Welcome to my Stirling single, part 22. This episode is called A Slight Problem with the Rear Wheels. So there I was with a piece of quite coarse emery cloth rubbing down the JB weld on the smoke box. I've painted the front half of the frames Great Northern Railway's chocolate brown. And it's looking, well, nice and chocolatey really. Thinking about the colour scheme on Great Northern Railway engines, the combination of chocolate and green sort of reminds me of a mint-flavoured chocolate bar. In this clip I'm applying a second coat of paint to the front part of the frames. And here's the bit I'm not particularly looking forward to because I have to paint the rear part of the frames and there are quite a few things in the way, in the form of the pair of live steam injectors and the rear wheels. These injectors were fitted new a few months ago. I steam tested the engine and that was about it. So I'm thinking there could be quite a lot of limescale in this boiler. I think it's a good idea to treat the boiler to a dose of kettle descaler. And this is quite simple. You just fill the boiler with water, add some kettle descaler. It's important to remove the safety valve because you do not need any pressure. All you need to do is first of all boil up the water inside the boiler, then leave it for a while for the kettle descaler to do its job. Then before the boiler cools, all you have to do is replace the safety valve, relight the temporary gas burner in the firebox as shown in the episode where I did the steam test, and raise a very small amount of pressure. Then you can blow down the boiler to get rid of all the limescale, which by this time will be in solution. Then it's a good idea to let the boiler cool down, refill it with clean water and repeat the process, but without the kettle descaler. By doing this, you're effectively cleaning the inside of the boiler. The boiler may prime slightly after this treatment, but it will settle down. Priming is when water is carried along the steam lines and through the safety valve. But it doesn't last long, and a couple of steamings later everything should settle down. Back to the job. The steam injectors have been removed and the piping can be bent out of the way. Removing the rear pair of wheels should be a very simple job. All I need to do is unbolt the horn stays, take them out of the way, and the axle boxes should slide out of the bottom. But can you believe it? The 4 bolts holding the horn keeps or horn stays in place are all sheared off. This really is a surprise for such a well-built engine. When I turn the bolt heads, the heads of the bolts rotate, but not the shaft. As it turned out, someone who was very heavy-handed had sheared off the bolt heads, and then stuck them back in the holes with some sort of adhesive. And to make it worse, one of the bolt heads was firmly stuck in the hole, so I had to drill that out, hence the removal of the swarf. When I went over to the drilling machine to drill out what was left of the threads in the horn keeps, something wonderful happened. I clamped the part in the vise and started to drill out the first broken bolt. I start the job using a centre drill to make sure that the drill point is exactly in the centre of the bolt. Amazingly, as soon as I use the twist drill, the shank of the bolt just starts to unscrew from the hole, and thankfully this happened with all 4 of the bolts that were left in the holes. All I really then had to do was hold them with a small pair of pliers and unscrew what was left of the broken bolts, which was most of the bolt. As you can clearly see from this clip, I cleaned up the parts on the belt sander. The original holes through these horn keeps or horn stays were only 6 BA, which is very small, and as soon as whoever fitted them to the engine and applied far too much pressure, the bolts just broke. I'm going to rethread them 5 BA. I'm using some easy tap compound to make sure I don't snap off the tap. Although to be honest, I don't normally snap off taps, but there's always a first time, and it's always going to happen with the camera running. After rethreading all 4 of the holes, I needed to enlarge the holes in the frames to accept the 5 BA bolts. And for this I thought I would use my Proxon motor tool, but it's going very fast, far too fast. But I thought I'd include it in the sequence to show you how not to do it. The drill was blunt after it got very hot in the first hole, and it glowed red in the second one because it was blunt. I resharpened the drill bit, and here I'm using a small Bosch electric drill. And this time the hole drilling was successful. Here I am drilling upwards from underneath at the other side. It's a good idea to get rid of all the swarf and chippings made by the drill. And as always, using a needle file, I'm removing any burrs. This is very important when fitting parts together bursts can cause a lot of problems. It's important in any type of engineering to make sure that the parts go together with perfectly good mating surfaces. A quick test fit tells me that everything's okay. These two components have been marked with a centre punch. One spot corresponds with a spot on the frames at one side, and the other one is marked with two spots, which again correspond with two spots on the frames at the other side. When this is all back together, there will be no danger of the back wheels falling out of the frames. I mean, they're not going to fall out of the frames on the track, but let's imagine you were transporting the engine, lifting it into the car, and one of the wheel sets fell out of the frames down into some concrete and broke the wheels. That would not be a good thing, but at least that cannot happen now. And that concludes this episode. I'd just like to say stay safe, stay well, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website. Click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you will find it very easy to find other videos that you may like to watch.